Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Arwynne O'Neill, and today, again, I'm here with my friend Katia.
Hello, Arwynne. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Today, we're going to be talking about the conjunction of Venus and Uranus, and we're going to talk about what it's like when Uranus transits to your natal Venus, and that happens probably once in a lifetime because Uranus takes 84 years to go around the zodiac.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Yeah. If somebody has it twice, I'm like, whoa, what's
Good
your
for them.
secret?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that fountain?
Right? Exactly. The Uranus turn is something that happens when you're 84 years old. So if you have Venus conjunct Uranus in your chart, you will, in 84 years, have...
in 84, not when you're 84.
Well, if you have it in your chart, you'll have... Yeah, exactly. It'll come back around to its natal point, but...
Like when you're 84 years old, specifically?
Because that's how long it would take if you, for your Uranus return. That is what they call it, like a Saturn return. You have that every 30 years approximately, because that's how long it takes Saturn to go around the zodiac. And the Saturn return is associated with like a midlife crisis-ish, kind of like a crisis of adulthood when you're around 28 to 30 years old. And then it happens again when
that's midlife crisis?
No.
28 to 30?
No, the 56. It comes around when you're...
Wait a minute.
I know. Right?
I missed it?
What? Damn it.
That explains everything. No.
It comes around again when you're 56-ish.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah. So that's more like the midlife crisis time. And then it comes again in your 80s. So... Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound great.
That's Saturn, though. Uranus is a little bit more... I mean, if you live to be 84 and you have a Uranus return, it's sometimes an amazing time when you can feel like freed of your inhibitions. And this is, I'm picturing those wonderful women in the Advanced Style book or blog where they're just these flamboyantly dressed, amazing fashion icons in New York City. And they have all the colors and they just look like amazing.
Yes.
And it's like, that's the way to be an old woman,
Yes.
like just wear all the colors and there's no such thing as being overdressed.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's like just the Uranian kind of personality coming out. And this is also because Venus rules fashion. This is something where if you have Venus conjunct Uranus in your chart, you might actually already be an advanced style icon. Because, it's all about planet of love and fashion and harmony and style and romance coming together with the planet of innovation and unexpectedness and excitement and technology and adventure and independence and freedom.
That sounds so unique, so modern. And I want it now.
Right.
I don't want it when I'm 80. No, I also want it when I'm 84. But all of that sounds lovely, actually.
Well, exactly. We could all cultivate a bit more Venus conjunct Uranus in our lives, I think. It's not all rosy, though. So there, of course, this is astrology. There's going to be a good side and a bad side. Mm-hmm. And Uranus isn't considered like a benefic planet per se, but it's not considered a malefic either. Like it's kind of hard to handle sometimes. And if it's not supported in your chart with some stabilizing capability or stabilizing influence, it could be, you could be a particularly disruptive person who just goes into your relationships or your finances, because also Venus rules money and how you deal with money. And it can become very disruptive because you might always be on the lookout for the next exciting relationship or the next investment opportunity. You might become kind of a con man or a woman and
it's your rebelling stage essentially.
Exactly. And it can be kind of inconsiderate of other people's feelings, unfortunately. Yeah.
But are you aware of it, or this kind of in the background?
Yeah, probably. I mean, maybe not when you're younger, but you and that's a good thing too to notice. Like, you can definitely get a handle on this because it's not just going to live in isolation in your chart. You're going to also have other things. You're probably going to have Saturn aspecting something. You're going to have some positive aspects maybe that the Venus makes elsewhere in your chart. So it's not just going to, it can probably in some people's charts be the major aspect that rules what they do and how they behave. But usually there's going to be sort of an ameliorating effect that's you're able to lean in somewhere else and not just be a completely disrupting person. But not everyone is going to want to be that aware either. Some people don't care.
Yeah. Can we talk about the dates? Like, when is this happening?
Oh, yeah. So this happens every year and a bit. So a year and 4 months ish.
Okay.
That's about how long Venus takes to go around the zodiac. And Uranus, of course, takes 84 years. So when they line up, it's not super common, but it's not super uncommon because Venus moves pretty quickly.
And like a quick Google search, be like, is this happening now?
Right.
And like, how do you find that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would just say Venus. When is Venus conjunct Uranus? That would be my search term.
And you're like the year that you're listening to.
Well, exactly. Yeah. You're probably going to come up. One of the first results will probably be Astrology King. He always does articles on, and I say he because his website's called Astrology King. Yeah. I don't know who's behind it, but I'm going to assume it's a male persona and he identifies as male, as a king. He always has the dates of all of the aspects.
That's helpful.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. So he has a list of Venus conjunct Uranus dates. So May 18th, 2024, July 4th, 2025, April 23rd, 2026, June 13th, 2027. So it's once a year, basically. Except for 2028, there's a retrograde. So it's going to actually happen 3 times in 2028. Ooh, yeah. So if you're planning like a singles cruise or, if you're working on a fashion line and you want to launch it at like a specifically auspicious time, maybe aim for spring 2028. If you can
cool.
wait that long.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the transit. When this happens to you, Robert Hand, in his book Planets in Transit, which we've talked about at length, and it's a wonderful transit Bible, he describes the transit of Uranus conjunct Venus as being potentially spectacular. He says you're likely to seek freedom and excitement through relationships at this time, especially sexual relationships. You may decide to break away from an old steady partner and seek out a new and exciting affair. And of course, this can be very disruptive, but if you're not in a steady relationship, this could be a time when you meet someone who sweeps you off your feet, or vice versa. And you could find yourself in an affair that's very different from anything you've ever experienced before. It may not last once the effects of the transit wear off, but it could have a lasting effect on your life and your personality long after it's over. And also, since Venus rules creativity, if you are an artist or involved in anything creative, film or fashion or whatever, this can be a great transit. And you can use it to integrate new techniques or new technologies and have an exciting breakthrough in any creative pursuit that you have.
Amazing.
Yeah, totally.
So great for innovative careers and involving other things besides fashion and art and music and all of that. Like, I mean, tech, science.
Yeah, anywhere that you're creative. Like, it's not specifically a scientific thing because Venus tends to be, more those quote unquote traditionally feminine kind of things, like textiles, music, performance, and that stuff. But if you have, like, I'm thinking of botany or you know what I mean, chemistry, where there's an element of beauty already, right? There's an element of harmony.
Apothecary versus pharmacy.
Yes. Oh my God. Perfect.
Cool. Okay.
Exactly. To bring an element of beauty and harmony and technology together. Yeah.
And back to the relationships. So it sounds like excitement is a common theme here.
Absolutely.
So would people fall in and out of love really quickly? Would they be breaking traditions? How are they showing these things? Like, how does it show up in a relationship?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Those things that you just said, for sure. So if this is in your natal chart, it fuses the love and attraction nature with electricity, with excitement, with innovation, and with restlessness. So this is not someone who's going to be content to just have, to settle down with their first love and never explore other possibilities. And which isn't to say that that's never going to happen, but that's not the nature of this aspect. And the same can be said for their financial personality. So depending on how well Venus is placed in their chart, this person can be fun and original. They can be a partner who's always bringing playfulness into your life if you're with them, or they can be the type, on the other hand, who's always on the lookout for the next exciting infatuation, who's never satisfied with just being settling down or restful or stable. And they could always be looking for the next big investment, the next con, the next windfall, and they can become addicted to that excitement, that first love feeling. And that, could be good or bad, depending on if you're with them and if you can keep them interested and excited, if that's the kind of partner that you are interested in and you're also that way. So we've talked a lot about in the past, like what kind of person you attract if you have these aspects. And this is definitely one where like will attract like.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, full disclosure, interestingly enough, I and my partner both have this aspect in our charts.
Oh my goodness. That's so vulnerable of you. Thanks for sharing.
Well, you know, it's all about oversharing for me in this podcast.
We love it.
Yeah. Oh, good. If you don't love it, go listen to another podcast where they don't talk about their own stuff. But I find it's always good to have an actual tangible example instead of just throwing a bunch of keywords at the wall, and I can definitely say that we like to be playful and do fun things together. Yeah. We like to spend time together, and we've been together for 26 years. So it's safe to say that it's not mutually exclusive with stability,
Yeah.
But we've also evolved a great deal over, like, individually and as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that you would definitely want if you're with someone who has this. You don't want to stifle their freedom or their ability to evolve and change, because that is 100% the road to ruin and not being in a relationship anymore, is to try to hinder them and prevent them from being free or feeling like they can do what they want.
Mm-hmm. Is there an addictive aspect to this?
I mean, you can definitely become addicted to excitement.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that thrill-seeking, always looking for the feeling of being in love, or the feeling of that rush of, like, discovery or inspiration.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, artists do tend to overlap a lot with addictive personality traits, but I think it's because they love that feeling of inspiration, of discovering something, of creating something that's new and interesting and that people will look at and hashtag like and subscribe or whatever, and I definitely find, in my own life, I'm involved in doing a podcast, and I do art, and I have a blog, and I write for a living. So I'm constantly, like, kind of creating things or wordsmithing things and presenting it to people. And there is that rush of excitement from, like, oh, wow, that's a great article. That was so interesting. Or I love that podcast episode, or that addiction to other people being influenced by your creative work can definitely be a thing.
I see. Yeah. You recently introduced me, long story short, to a Norwegian word called forelsket. Forelsket. Say it with confidence and no one will question.
Forelsket.
Whatever. Frisket. Maybe that's actually how I pronounce it. But it's a Norwegian word. It doesn't exist in our vernacular, but it means the euphoric feeling at the beginning of love. And it's something that apparently enhances and completes us, which is why we're so drawn to it. Yeah. Obviously, it feels really good to be infatuated with something that's just so intensely euphoric that I'm not surprised that, especially during this time, that you could feel that so often. But that has to be, that has to cause so much anxiety.
Right.
That level of excitement is awesome. It's wonderful, but, like, you can't be on a high all the time, right? Like, so do these folks or during this time, does it mean that the hardest thing for this person to do is to meditate, to do a breathing technique, to, because, like, it's the opposite of what they are so drawn to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't meditate. I've tried to, and it's funny. I tried to meditate with someone a long time ago who was very psychic, and we sat there in this room, and I tried. To be fair, I was 13. You can't expect a 13-year-old girl to go with her parents to a meditation retreat and not be bored or anxious or fidgety. And of course, this is way before cell phones, so I wasn't even, like, jonesing to look at my phone. I might have been jonesing to get back to my cassette tape Walkman and the music that I had on tape, which may have been, Dead or Alive or, like, Pet Shop Boys or something. Anyways, like, not to go down a rabbit hole. But, meditating was very hard. And my very psychic stepfather at the time was like, I could hear your little brain whirring like a monkey on a treadmill the whole time. It was very distracting. And I'm like, sorry. Like, what did you expect?
Yeah. And was this happening? Would you know, actually? Was this happening at that time, this conjunction?
I don't think so. I think it's just because I have it in my chart. It's because, I think I definitely have trouble, like, just being quiet and focusing. And it's funny, even if I'm watching a movie, and my mother is the same way, so this may be also just something that runs in the family. Well, like, we very much like to have unless it's like incredibly engrossing, if you're just watching something to have it on in the background, it's great to have like your laptop and you can kind of be like, oh, who's that actor? And then you look it up and you're, oh, they were also in this or that. It's terrible if you're with someone who wants to focus and it's like, oh, would you shut up?
Yes.
But it is funny because I found that my partner and I, when we're watching something together, if it's super engrossing, we'll both be zoned in. But if it's not super engrossing, we can both be completely distractible like that in a good way. We both used to work from home. I would have my laptop and he would have his laptop and we would have something on TV or a podcast or an audiobook going on in the background. And it wasn't even like some people would be like, how can you focus? But it was just kind of perfect. And we would just interject a little conversation here and there about whatever it was. And that kind of overstimulation was actually just enough. It was great.
Yeah. Because it can get exhausting.
Right.
Like just mental stimulation. Yeah. Intellectual stimulation is interesting and needs a little rest.
For sure. Yeah.
You can't stay in that forever.
Exactly.
But you brought up your mom and just putting it out there, I feel like the world needs Shannone back on this podcast.
Yeah, actually,
I would love to get another episode. I think that would be super, super cool. So just kind of dropping
heard it here
that
first.
seed.
Yes, I will absolutely be inviting her to do more episodes. For sure.
Just planting that
seed. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yes. But anyway, I think a few of our listeners probably agree as well.
But back to Venus, Uranus, on relationships, on behavior, on how it governs us.
Yeah.
What else is there for us to know about this?
Okay, so these people and I'm going to quote another amazing book here called Aspects and Personality by Karen Haymaker-Zodag. She says, Venus represents the need for harmony and warmth. And when it teams up with Uranus, the need for individuality, freedom, and a life of our own can make us bold, eccentric, or reformist. Being highly strung and having an overpowering desire for personal freedom, we can experience difficulty forming firm friendships, which make us nervous, tense, and insecure because we are also always trying to stay unfettered, which I think is really interesting. But she also says relationships can work as long as these people don't feel hemmed in by conventional rules, have a scope for development, and above all, are living with a partner who is unconventionally stimulating. So if you have friends who somehow feel like they're restricting you, and it's interesting because I know a lot of people are friends with people who they knew in high school or college, and they've just been friends for their whole lives. And I haven't. I have like maybe one friend who I've known since, we were in middle school. And he is a very unconventional person, though. He's incredibly unconventional. He travels all the time. He volunteers like in foreign lands and is a very interesting and exciting and always evolving person. And so I think that is one of the reasons why our friendship has worked that well, because he is so interesting and always changing and evolving that he doesn't make me feel like, in a good way, sometimes like we're both 11 years old again, like we can laugh our asses off about the stupidest things together. And that's awesome. But at the same time, he doesn't make me feel like, oh, I'm being hemmed in by this persona that he would remember from 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, I know what you mean about how if you do end up meeting somebody that you haven't seen since like high school, like, wow, you've changed. But like sometimes it doesn't come off as a compliment, right? As if it's a bad thing. Like, yeah, I'm no longer a child. Right. I've had all these experiences. But this is a little different in that it's like this friend of yours probably highly values originality, novelty, but seems to present himself to the world quite nicely.
Absolutely.
Still.
And he's an Aquarian, so.
Yeah. Okay.
So all of that is very much in line with, someone who has Venus conjunct Uranus in their chart, is that's the kind of person that they're attracted to, that they make them, they'll kind of bring out that exciting part of their personality. Yeah. And I did have a lot of Aquarian friends as I was growing up, interestingly.
Well, maybe attracting a certain kind.
And it is true. It's like one of those things where you do attract people who are similar with this aspect, unlike certain other aspects where you want to attract your opposite kind of thing. And that's maybe if it was Venus opposite Uranus, you might find yourself projecting those exciting qualities onto your partner.
Oh, I see.
So that's just kind of a difference between like the conjunction and the opposition, for example.
Yeah. And when it comes to romance, with this style, if this is in your chart and you really embody that, would you be more open to unusual expressions of your I don't know. You know where I'm going with this.
I do.
Polyamory is where I'm going with this.
Hilarious. I'm going to take myself out of the question here, and I'm going to say that theoretically, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of the older astrology books, I mean, the books I'm looking at here, a lot of them were written before the word polyamory even existed.
Yeah.
So they'll say things like unconventional relationships, or they'll even say like homosexuality as though that were like a weird lifestyle choice as opposed to an identity or whatever.
Yeah.
And they'll say like only in extreme cases. Yeah, okay, okay, boomer. Just kidding. But,
we love boomers.
Yes, we absolutely do. But yeah, that's one of those things where, yes, absolutely unconventional relationships, unconventional self-expression, and the more unusual and the closer the conjunction is. Mine's actually pretty wide conjunction. It's like 9 degrees or something like that. Some people might not even consider it a conjunction.
That's considered wide?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like a 9-degree orb. If it's like 0, it would be exact.
And
so I mean, some people might not even consider that a conjunction, but for me, it's like it seems to be so much part of my personality that I'll allow it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll allow that extra 1 degree orb. To say, I feel that one. So yeah.
And back to fashion, style, that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe spring cleaning is on my mind, but how about home decor?
Oh, yeah.
Would that reflect some avant-garde taste or...
For sure. Yeah, like decorating your home with things that you've created, for sure.
Yeah.
Or bright colors, interesting things like games or like little interesting, intricate pieces of art or pieces of like tactile stuff that people can kind of go, oh, what is this? And, kind of pick it up and play with it, or having instruments around the house, maybe. Yeah.
Oh,
I could totally see that.
Those things.
Yeah. It's funny too. Like when I used to go to work in a cubicle, I would always I was one of those people who had to have like some things around my cubicle to keep it interesting, you know, like not just like the pictures, whatever, like, but I had like, I had a little divider wall where I used to eat gummy candy sort of semi-addictively. I would get those multi-packs that had like all the different kinds of gummy candy, and some of them would have those weird licorice flavored things that look like the Maui from Easter Island.
Okay.
Like they're this weird licorice flavored
not my
figures.
Thing, but I
no,
get it.
Exactly. And I didn't like them either. So every time I found one of those in my pack of multi gummy candy, I would stick them on the divider, and they would kind of dry out and become like, you know, these sort of chalk colored things.
Cool.
And so people would come in and be like,
they're not chewed, right?
No, because I didn't like them at all. They were just like those little...
Imagine you find like a child comes into the office and
nom,
they're like
nom,
licking this wall.
Oh, gross. Yeah, they couldn't reach that because it was at the top of the divider. But I lined them up like the Maui from Easter Island, and they would defend my quote-unquote island cubicle. So, I mean, I suppose you could consider that eccentric decorating.
Yeah.
I also had a book, which is a hilarious book, called Cube. I think it was called Cube Decor or something like that.
Okay.
And it was about how to decorate your cubicle in a cool and eccentric and interesting way. And it had a different design on each page. So it had like, you know, the Western cubicle, or like the disco cubicle, and the Hawaiian tent cubicle with like the grass skirts and the, you know, totem.
There are cubicle workers who wear the stiff button-up shirts.
Yeah.
And then there's Arwynne. I want to be in your cubicle.
Exactly right. That's what I would go for, is the inviting and eccentric and wacky cubicle. If you have to spend 8 hours a day in a thing that's not your own apartment, which of course is much more my choice now, bring a little personality to it.
I love it.
Yeah, so if you walk by someone at work and they have a cubicle that's covered in streamers and exciting things, and it's no one's birthday, and they've got a bowl of candy and a bunch of other stuff, maybe they might have this aspect.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Find out.
Are there other examples of something when it comes to Venus conjunct Uranus? Uranus?
Well, let's just go right into our celebrities.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's that time. So Venus conjunct Uranus in the birth chart. And I'm going to tell you what sign they're conjunct in, because that's an interesting one. So Elizabeth Taylor.
Cool.
Obviously.
Oh,
right?
The eyes.
Yeah. And she's got them in Aries. So that is definitely someone who's restless in love, who's always looking for the next thing, but yet Richard Burton and she were married two times, and I forgot to check if he has the same aspect, but yeah, she's one of those ones who a lot of astrologers have written about her chart, and it's probably because one of the aspects that she has is this, and it's such a perfect illustration of her life and you know, what we know of her anyway.
And who else is actually born with like true violet colored eyes?
Right?
Like,
how original and beautiful is that?
Exactly. Amazing.
I can't even think of another one. Rose McGowan.
Oh, cool.
I know, right? And that's in Libra because she's a bit younger, so she would have that Uranus in Libra. And I'm the same generation, so I find that interesting. Warren Beatty has them in Taurus. Also multiple romances there. Christina Aguilera has them in Scorpio. Miley Cyrus has the conjunction in Capricorn. Johnny Cash has the conjunction in Aries. Tim Burton in Leo, and he's obviously incredibly creative and eccentric. Amazing.
Absolutely.
And bringing in the sort of financial thing, and also what we talked about earlier of like being a con person. Jordan, the Wolf of Wall Street Belfort, has the conjunction in Leo.
Cool. Yeah. When you hesitate, I thought you were going to say like someone I know.
No. How many con men do you know?
I don't
They're
know.
so charming. You're just like
my hands are like actually sweaty.
Jordan? Which Jordan?
Yeah. And I was like, I knew a Jordan. No, that's not him, I hope.
Yeah. No, it's not that Jordan.
No.
Yeah, the Wolf of Wall Street.
Shout out J-Rock. But anyway, he probably doesn't listen to astrology, but who knows?
Maybe he will now.
Yeah.
He'll be like, oh my God, she said my name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Venus conjunct Uranus.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. Just one last question about gender.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. Would this be a little more fluid?
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
like that's kind of it's not a fraught topic exactly. Yeah. It can be, but I mean, when we're talking about astrology, we're talking about archetypes, right?
Yes.
So absolutely. And going back centuries even, there's always been a gender fluidity to some people in the sense of like, I'm thinking Marlene Dietrich wearing the pants and flirting with the girl in that in whichever movie that was back in the 30s. You know, Katharine Hepburn wearing pants and being like this cool, like cool is another key word for this aspect.
Yeah. Or Victoria.
Hell yes, exactly, stuff like that. So it's always been a thing, whether it has anything to do with being actually trans or non-binary or feeling like you were born in the wrong body or having a gender identity that's not the same as you're assigned when at birth. All of that stuff is sort of outside of the scope of what we're talking about, because what we're talking about is archetypes, and anyone who, whether depending on who, not depending on who they're attracted to or how they feel in their own body, can embody male and female archetypes in any combination. So in astrology, even though we do say, like, quote unquote, astrology is sexist sometimes because the archetypes tend to be like Venus versus Mars, whatever. Yeah. But everyone has all of those planets in their chart.
Yes.
And so all of these aspects just create like a collage of different personality types that may that all combine feminine and masculine. You're not going to meet very many people. In fact, I don't even know if it's mathematically possible that will only have feminine signs represented in their chart. Like, that would be an incredibly unusual thing for all 10 planets to be in like a feminine or masculine sign. I think it's possible, but I'd have to research that. It would be an incredibly unusual thing. And even then, you would, depending on the aspects that those planets make to each other, you're still going to bring in, some of the opposite, speaking in a binary way, of course. But yeah, like those energies are binary, whether or not you have them in that way in your life and your personality.
It's a spectrum, and I like how you use the word collage, and that does paint a more comforting picture of how all of these aspects are part of you, and different aspects are heightened or subdued at different times, and I still see this as a really exciting time, especially when it comes to fashion or art in general. I personally really appreciate that, and you're a woman of arts and or a person of arts.
I think I'm definitely identify about as female as it gets.
Just in case, exactly. What if you just decide to change your mind one day, and I respect that.
Exactly. That'd be fine.
Thank you for explaining that. That was really helpful for a newbie to this field.
Amazing.
I really appreciate it.
Well, and I hope this was helpful for our listeners. And if you have any questions or want a topic covered, feel free to email us at starzology@gmail.com and let us know what you think. And if you found value in this episode, share it with other people. And thanks again for joining me, Katia.
Oh, thank you for having me, Arwynne. This is so fun. Absolutely. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.